Jake,
I'll
wanna
just give
move
me the, go ahead.
Hey, go ahead.
The air conditioner's on, we have to yell louder. Good evening, everyone. I will open the meeting. If anyone's recording, would they let it be known? For the benefit of our new clerk, or what's her, administrative assistant?
Department assistant.
I will do a roll call. To my left is Mike King, Mike Baptiste. To my right is Mark Bianco, Richard Swenson. Charles Rowley's just joined us.
Good evening.
And of course, Ken Buckland. First item of business is the meeting minutes of July 8th. Here, make a motion on the minutes of July 8th, if you're ready.
Make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes for July 8th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mike King, seconded by Mike Baptiste. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see, opposed? Let's see. I guess we'd have one extension because you weren't here, right? Next item is an approval not required plan for map 111, lot 1000, ADM, Ihonet Road. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
I have half sizes.
Pete?
Yes, I do. I do. Please, the color. I have the color half size also if you need them. Sure. I'd like one for my record. Thank you, Bill.
It's different, okay.
Before you get started, just out of curiosity, when you do your work, you do your presentations. I got it on, sorry. Is making this package hard to do? This size package, the drawings?
No,
Something that could be sent in digitally that could?
yes. Okay, I guess you guys are waiting on me on this one. This is a really division of some property of 80 Makepeace. It's map 1,000, lot 1,000 on map 111. And what Makepeace wishes to do is essentially just break down that large tract of land into smaller pieces for whatever land use planning they may be wanting to do in the future. One of the more important features on it was the creation of the parcel R1, which is really the length of Tyhonet Road as it runs through the Makepeace property. What we didn't create a layout, we just created a parcel that would reflect a future roadway layout, and we indicated as a parcel of land. We have significant survey data on that. We're able to take that data and compile, put the plan together, and that's what we did. But we labeled it as a parcel for the time being. And then we broke out the pond parcel, a couple of upland parcels. This white parcel right here had been previously broken out. That's the location where Chris Makepeace once lived, just as a point of reference for those of you that might know Tyhonet Road, what is taking place back here. There's a small cul-de-sac at the end of the laid out portion of Tyhonet Road. That cul-de-sac was placed there when we did those freeze plans going back, I don't know, 15 or 18 years ago, something along those lines. But we just created Lot H, Lot G, Lot F, Lot E, which is a small pond front parcel, Lot D, and Lot C. So, and Lot B as well. So that's essentially what we've done here, is just laid out these parcels. We did call the ones that front on Tyhonet Road, we did call them lots. You know, they're not intended to be building lots at this time, but they meet the requirements for as a lot. A building lot would require us to get a percolation test, show our upland ratio and things of that nature. Those are just two examples of things that would need to be shown on the plan to create a buildable lot. So while they are lots meeting zoning, they're not intended to be building lots at the current time. So that's the overview that just shows things in color to break it up, because it's a true plan Form A set. We have a portion of it that's, let's see, what do we have from the town of Plymouth down, and then that's a Plymouth town line, actually. And then there's a portion of it that goes from the end of Tyhonet Road up along Tyhonet Pond to the north. So they all have the required frontage. They all have the area with the exceptions of the parcels, and they're just intended. This is all intended to be just a. They call it. They perceive it as cleaning up of that large tract of land. It's just one thing that they asked us to do. They have no immediate plans for any work on any of those lots. So it's really a housekeeping exercise, as they term it, over at ADM. And they've asked us to put the plan together that I've presented.
When the freeze plan was done, did that stop at that cul-de-sac? Or did it did it show Tyhonet Road?
I don't recall. I don't remember on that one. I think it just created 3 large tracts of land for the purpose of freezing a zoning article that I don't even think the zoning article passed at the time. But you know, once again, I just don't recall, and that was so long ago.
But it's indicated on the piece that Chris's house was separated on.
It was indicated on one of those lots. Well, Chris's lot was created prior to that, so I would imagine that lot line that created the freeze parcels would have excluded the parcel that Chris's house was on.
Why did you choose 50 feet in width instead of 60, whatever, some other distance?
Just felt like that was I guess that would be the road width that would be suitable for development in there. I don't think that they had a development plan, so if they're just creating the parcel, I think that in the future, if it was desired or needed to widen that, create, say, a 60-foot layout or an 80-foot layout for a development plan, then we would come back and change that, create actually a roadway layout with a development plan and incorporate the additional area in width that would be desired.
How do you believe that you're not creating a subdivision when you're doing a layout of a roadway?
Well, we didn't do
Because
it. We
it's-
didn't
because
create a
it's-
layout, we created a parcel,
Just a parcel?
right? If we were creating the roadway layout, we would be required to show the plan and profile of that roadway, and I think that we would even be needing to show stormwater management, drainage, everything that you would be required to show for a definitive plan. Just as a point further, the Farm of the Future that we did for Makepeace that is all in Plymouth, there was a need to relocate a portion of Tyhonet Road at that time around some of the cranberry acreage that was being developed. So, you know, we didn't create a layout up there either in Plymouth, but we did relocate the actual traveled way of Tyhonet Road in Plymouth.
How is Tyhonet Road defined in the deeds? Is it is it described as a way?
I would say it was just described as a way through the Makepeace property. I did not review the deed, so I can't really speak directly to that point.
Ken, help me with the difference between a lot and a parcel.
A lot is in usual terms, means it's a buildable parcel of land. A parcel could be a non-buildable piece of land.
So when this is before us, are we approving them as, do we have to distinguish between a lot and a parcel? Or are we just approving boundary lines?
I think this is a slightly unusual case because a way is being defined as a parcel. And it shows up in the, I'm assuming it shows up in the deeds as a traveled way. If you use the terms, I think you should define them. The parcel is not a buildable lot. And it's so described in the notes on the plan.
Approval would lead to the possibility of multiple approval not required plans on an unimproved road.
I think that it could have, that it could lead to, regardless of whether there's a parcel created for that or not, I believe that would be the case. I think there's just a desire to create more definition for Tyhonet Road and to identify it as a distinct parcel separate from the other holdings and to just designate it as Tyhonet Road.
If it is termed a parcel as opposed to a way, does that preclude it from being required to be upgraded for future plans?
No, if if any future development were to use this as access and frontage for it,
Then it would have to
you'd
be,
be looking at, just as you did in other A&Rs, at the width, grade, and
Mhm.
construction
okay.
of the way, so it provides vital access to the parcel for development. The question would be, is 50 feet the appropriate width for the width, grade, and construction that would be appropriate for this development, future development of these parcels and lots?
I mean, for example, there are other uses within the zoning district that would not necessarily result in residential development. Solar, for example, I guess is a pretty common way to deal with a large tract of land that I think that have been designated as parcels, not to be a building lot, but we created, you would create that tract for a solar project, and there would be no real need to have anything more than let's say a 40-foot way to gain access to that. I'm not suggesting that that would be the case here. I mean, if they were to build additional cranberry bog acreage, a water supply reservoir, something that would be agriculture related, that would be, I think the width would be suitable in those instances. And if it were going to be real estate development, and I'll tell you there are no immediate plans to do any of that down here as we speak, I think that we would certainly have to evaluate what goes on at both ends of Tyhonet Road, whether it's in Plymouth, through Plymouth into Carver, where it exits out on Cranberry Road, as well as the portion of which goes through Tyhonet Village. Tyhonet Village is only laid out, I believe it's laid out at 40 feet. So, there are restrictions on either end of Tyhonet Road that would really require a significant amount of evaluation for any development scheme. And when we look at that 90-degree turn right through Tyhonet Village, I mean, that's certainly not tremendously conducive to a lot of traffic going through there. And I think from a practical point of view, it would be likely that you would want to recreate an additional portion of roadway through perhaps where some of the old buildings where the maintenance shops are at Makepeace, down in that neighborhood. I mean, I can speak from experience that we have looked at things many years ago for the company in providing access from, say, Carver through Plymouth and into Wareham, and those were some of the bottleneck areas that we recognized as requiring some specific detailed attention.
If we own the parcel, we don't have to really define any specific width of the road. If you deem a parcel as non-buildable, buildable right now, we're going to have to come back to us once they build the property.
They have to provide the proper frontage and access to the development.
Would be if we accept 40 feet right now and come back and we want it 60, they're going to have to redefine the boundaries of each parcel. Each parcel that converts itself to a lot.
If you're looking at the proper width, grade, and construction of the road, it could potentially expand beyond, and you'd be right, that you could ask for more in this case.
For the purpose of what they're using the property for right now, it's just a subdivided parcel. And does there even need to be a road on it right now for the subdivision of properties?
As long as there is identifying that these are non-buildable lots, if they don't have the proper frontage on the,
But
On a
through the
proper
all the
road.
definition that it's a parcel, that indicates that it is a non-buildable lot. next step would have to be to convert that parcel to lots, which side would be required.
Would the subdivision laws, if this was approved as is tonight, and then in the future, we heard back from ADM saying we now want to fix this road and make them buildable lots, would that bypass subdivision guidelines and laws?
Well, I think we're introducing this term of subdivision. That's not what they're asking for right now. They're just
I'm saying in the future though.
form sub-parcels.
Sure, but in the future, when you did want to make them buildable lots, would you be able to do it on a lot-by-lot basis without subdivision guidelines? Which truly, it is a subdivision now. If it's like one pieces, you're not doing it? Is that, Charlie, you have an input, any thoughts on that?
I wouldn't get too hung up on the fact that you've got two lines here that are 50 feet apart. They mean nothing. What I believe you have to look at is the existing gravel road that's there. Bill, do you know how wide it is?
I think it's in excess of 24 feet in width of the traveled way, and it's cleared, I'm going to say, looks like it's 40, I don't know the true dimension, but it looks like it's 40 feet in width. It's
It's been a long time since I was there, but
wide.
I agree with you. There are places where it is quite wide. This is just my opinion, that don't even think about those two lines that are there that are 50 feet apart. All they do is define the limits of the lots.
Right.
Which, again, it's my opinion. You should be looking at this as a division of land on either side of an existing way that's been there since before 1951. And the question you have to ask yourself, is that travel way suitable for the purposes of which this plan is being prepared? Doesn't mean anything as to what's going on in the future. If they come back with a 25-lot subdivision in one of these parcels on this road, then you can say, okay, is that access then sufficient for the additional amount of traffic that's going to be generated by that 25-lot subdivision? But in my opinion on this plan, for this purpose, it's more dependent on the construction of the existing road, which I think it would have been good to show. Do you know for a fact that all of the gravel road is within these 50-foot limits?
Yes, it is.
So you've got that laid out somewhere?
We have topography, aerial topography of all of Makepeace land holdings, and it's clearly defined within the limits of the tree
Yeah.
widths, the roadway. It's all very well defined, and we do know with 100% certainty what the limits are of that roadway.
The fact that they're calling it a 50-foot wide parcel, I guess you can do that, but you still, I believe, as a board, still make the determination, is the existing Tyonet Road in its condition, forget the lines, in its condition, sufficient to allow this division?
But the purpose of the property is not changing.
Doesn't matter.
So the purpose is not changing and the land is not conveying.
Doesn't matter.
So we want to impose a requirement to change the roadway?
No. I'm saying that in order to sign this as an approval not required plan, where they're dividing this property up into multiple lots along Tyonet Road, under the subdivision rules and regulations, Tyonet Road has to fit one of three criteria.
I'm sorry, before you go on.
Okay.
The subdivision apply to parcels and lots or just lots?
It applies to any division of property where the access is not suitable, or where there is no access, regardless of what you call it.
Whether it's buildable or unbuildable.
Correct.
So if there was no road there, if this was just forest land?
Then you couldn't sign it.
What's that?
You couldn't sign it.
Because it would have the...
There's no road. There's no road. It has to conform to one of those three criteria, which I had mentioned before. Either Tyonet Road in its form was laid out under the subdivision control law with bearings and distances such as what you see here, or it's a way which has been certified by the town clerk as being maintained by the town of Wareham, or it's a way in existence prior to 1951 when subdivision came into the town. And in that case, you have to make a determination if that road, when it was in existence at that time and still is, whether it's of sufficient line, grade, width, and construction for the purpose for which this plan has been prepared. Right now, it's just vacant land, and you could take this, it's in the R130 district, correct, Bill? So you could put a single house on each lot, or any other use that's allowed on the lot, under those circumstances.
So what do we want for the approval of here?
You need to determine if the road is adequate.
Well, we need to first define what the purpose of the road is.
No,
It's
no,
access to the parcels, but it's currently just access to agricultural.
no, it's a road that traverses through the property that has these parcels on it. It's been in existence prior to 1951, that I know. So you have to decide if that construction is adequate for the division of this property. That's the only decision you really have to make. And it does not matter what the use may be in the future, what it is right now. What's being shown to you is large parcels of land that are, more than 10 acres apiece on most of them. Here's one that's 148, 62. They're large parcels, and that's the only determination you really need to make.
So, Bill, you'd mentioned before that you deemed these lots to be, quote, non-buildable lots. And I was wondering,
I said that they would not be deemed to be a buildable lot. They're lots pursuant to zoning in that they have frontage and area, but they're not buildable until such time as you have a percolation test and you show the adequacy of water supply, and I guess your wetland and upland your upland and wetland percentages. So there are additional steps that would need to be taken before you could issue a building permit for construction.
that, you answered my question, thank
But
you.
that's criteria that you don't get to make a decision on. Yeah.
But you could provide the dimensions and the construction of the road to us. You already have that data? Or you
Yeah,
have to go back on survey and?
Yeah, I mean, we know it's variable width and that that it exceeds 24 feet in most instances. I mean, it's this, for those of you that haven't been there, it's the spine road really through the major Makepeace land holdings. And it's been in existence for quite a number of years. All the cranberry operations use it. They've hauled sand and gravel out of there. They've used it for access for some of the solar sites. So, it's truly probably one of the better, or the best gravel-type surface you'll find any place in town, or southeastern Mass for that matter.
I've been on that road several times over the past year, and it's a well-built gravel road. It's wide. I see the dump trucks running back and forth there all the time across the pond.
But it seems to me we must have, I don't know if this board did, but somewhere in the past, have already approved this as a acceptable access road to the solar panels.
I don't know, I didn't work on those solar projects, so I'm not sure what the approval process was when those projects were before you.
I guess
But
the basic question I'm asking is, would your client agree to upgrading the road to get this subdivision of parcels if it was needed?
I don't think there's a need to upgrade. I believe it meets the criteria of suitable with-grade construction.
That seems to be the $64,000 question. How do we make that determination?
Go out and look at it. You observe it.
That's kind of where I'm going. And who makes that look and who makes that determination?
Each of you as board members.
Problem is you have 21 days since this was filed to make a decision on it.
Right. So you have until the first meeting in August to make that determination.
Reasonable?
21 days from today.
Does it seem reasonable to this board that we each look at that? Michael, you've seen it.
See, I've been on it many, many times.
I have not seen it. I think that it would be wise if we did, the rest of us, or we can take your word for it, which, I don't trust you, so. Does that seem reasonable to you, Bill?
Oh, it does. I think that Charlie's right. I think you're right, and we'd be happy to take you through the entire length of Tidehaven Road, and you can see for yourself. I'm, 100% confident that, it meets those standards. It's an exceptionally it's a well-maintained, well-constructed gravel road. It is the spine through that property, so whatever it takes to secure the comfort level for an affirmative vote is what we're happy to do.
Have I been on this road on the Cranberry tour, getting pulled in a wagon with a tractor?
Likely, yes.
Yeah. You went to the Cranberry Festival.
Yep.
You were on that road. They run the school buses up and down it.
Wasn't paying attention to
Where
the
the
road.
cranberry bogs are out in the back, and I think they had the small little display up by Plymouth, I think is, you might have been out of Wareham at that time. There was a section up in the central core parcel that I believe was used for some of that agro-tourism that they were promoting.
I'm familiar with it, but I haven't been on it in quite some time. What's your pleasure?
As far as my vote's concerned, I mean, I'm comfortable with the road. I've been on it. I know what it's all about.
Mark, you familiar with the road? Yeah, I've been back there when they were doing the solar projects, so we had to do some inspections back there. Probably been a couple of years, but I don't think they deteriorated. Yeah, I'll commit to doing a second inspection for the board for the next meeting.
I'll take a ride back down it again, just to reaffirm.
Is a motion to continue pending a site visit?
George, could I ask one question on sheet 2? Bill, the parcel which was Chris's house lot, is that notation L35 at the real narrow part of the lot, is that the dividing line between it and lot 1000E to the north? L35 is only about 16 feet long.
35.
Yeah, is that the actual division line for that lot?
I would say yes.
Okay. So we're not creating a new lot, map 111, lot 1 then?
No.
That's already in existence.
Existing to remain, yeah. Would there be a need for someone to be with any of the board members that want to go out on the site to view the road? Just checking,
We should probably set a date, if possible, who wants to visit, and,
Does there need to be any coordination with ADM?
well, there's locked gates in many instances out there, and if we get trapped behind a gate, it might not work out that well. Bolt cutters, right? But I think just, to advise them that other people would be out there, I think might be wise as well.
We just start at the corporate offices and you'll guide us through a tour?
I'm sorry?
Just meet you at the corporate office there in Diana Village?
Yep,
And then
sure.
we'll just go from there, right?
Yep.
I don't know if she would have set a specific time. Like,
I'm good towards the end of next week, anytime after that.
you want to do it as a group or individually?
We'll go out as a group.
You can ride in the back of your truck.
Oh, I might get the tires dirty. Can't do that.
That's only.
Did you say, Mark, the end of next week?
Yeah, about Friday, August 2nd.
Friday's good.
On the maintenance side of the canal, so.
Friday works.
It's fine with me.
I'll go up there as early as you want. Just knock it out at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
You want to say 8 o'clock, does that work?
Sure.
8 o'clock, August 2nd.
I walked in without my phone. Yeah, there's one there too.
And I guess you just meet out there at the
the corporate office.
front of the office there? How about yeah, they have a parking lot that's right next to the box
Mill.
building. Why don't we meet there in the parking lot, and then we could head through. I'll be happy to meet you guys there.
Okay.
Do you have a
Sounds good.
hay wagon for Richard to ride on?
Well, we'll see if we can arrange that.
Hopefully we do it at night, that's great.
Mosquitoes will carry you away. So a motion's been made to continue and site visit by Mike King and seconded by
Oh, yeah, second.
Mark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So moved.
Yes, no,
Just for information, so it's not a meeting. The other is approval not required, map 105, lot 1002C. This is off of Charlotte Furnace Road.
Yeah, give me these ones.
I have half sizes of that as well, if you'd like.
That would be nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Couple of roads going through there at one time.
That's what this is.
All right, now, in this case, you have a public way, Charlotte Furnace Road, which because it's public, you don't have the ability to consider the width, grade, and construction of the road.
Oh, we can, but it won't do any good.
No.
Okay, on this plan, we're essentially creating a parcel that's designated as parcel 10002-E. It's the intention to, when we create that parcel, since it'll have no frontage or access off of Charlotte Furnace Road, the intention is to convey that to Bayside Agriculture on map 105, lot 84. That's just to the left of the of that parcel, and to also create lot 1002-C, which would be a conforming lot to the zoning. So it would be 2.4 acre lot, 180 feet of frontage on Charlotte Furnace Road. So we're meeting the area and the criteria requirement, and also indicating the zoning circle that's required to be placed on the plan. The remaining land, lot 10002-D, that's the remaining parcel. We're carving 10002C from 10002D, and now that's the remaining portion of 10002D. And that has the adequate frontage in area, and also shows the zoning circle that's required as well.
So, what happened to the access to the solar panel that was coming off Charlotte Furnace? Gone?
Let's see.
In the past, we've seen two plans where that changed. There was two roads at one time, or two strips were set aside for access to the solar panels. Then it was down to one, and now I see you're cutting the last one in half.
I think that, I don't know where that actually comes from. I believe it's from a Beals and Thomas plan that created that access.
Long ago.
It's actually, well, the recorded plan that Beals and Thomas prepared, it still shows the, access to the solar field. But it's not indicated on this plan. I think there was something with the dates, the plans were filed with the registry, but once again, I'm not 100% on that.
Was it located on
Yeah, well,
No,
where 1002E is at the one end of it?
yes. Yeah, it would be this is the piece that you're talking about at the end, and then that is no longer there. So the access would be the 80 Makepeace access down on the end. And in Master Millworks is adjacent to that, so that should be, see where the angle point is, 8170 on the far right-hand side of the sheet?
Mm-hmm.
put a tick mark going in there, right.
Yeah, I was thinking that's where it would be. There's no dimensions on this plan, but there is a dimension back at the rear property line of 80.55, so that access still remains at that location. So if you drew on that far right-hand side, if you go from the 80.55 at the rear of that lot line and extended it down to the tick mark at 8170, that's where the access point would be.
Shouldn't that be there?
I
Shouldn't that
think it
remain-
should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to indicate it on the plan or that you file?
I think we should indicate it on the plan that we filed with you, and we need to revise that and add that to the drawing.
The area of that parcel's gonna be subtracted from the overall lot 2002D, right?
Correct. Unless that was just labeled as a right-of-way or whatever, but I'll look into it so that I have a better idea what the situation is with that.
Bill, is there a chance also that that also exists in the middle of 1002D? On the easterly end where you've got a dimension of 5001?
When I was talking to Jeff, he explained that there was a couple of other plans that were filed, so I need to look into that. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, they're designating the bounds with the drill holes right there, so I mean, if it was, they're there for a reason. In that little offset up at the corner, kind of it aligns with those,
Yeah.
It's all 80 Makepeace property, but if they are, separate lots, they're not designated as separate lots on the Beals and Thomas plan. So let me look into that and provide you with a response to that question. So we just table it until the plans are revised.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this till we get the corrected information.
Second.
one option you have is to endorse it with the, that change. And so all we need is the signature of the chairman of the planning board on the endorsement.
With that, the change for the access indicated on the new plan?
Right.
These map changes,
I'm sorry?
would you rather put this off to the 12th, or would you make the map changes and submit it to the planning office before that?
I could make the map changes and submit to the planning office. That would be the better option from our end, I'm sure.
Trust George. Trust George.
Ken's got my signature down for you.
That'd be my vote, so we're not consuming agenda for next meeting.
So, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Make a motion to accept the plan with the understanding that the changes discussed will be made before submitting.
To approve the A and R pending the map changes. Yep. Motion made by Mike King, seconded by Mike Baptiste. Any discussion? All in favor?
All right?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
And I'll report back to Ken if there's something that I missed on this. I'll know tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Next, Bill. Going anywhere?
What's that?
I don't think you're going anywhere.
I'm not.
Next is the continued public hearing for Gateway Motors LLC site plan review.
I have two full-size plans of revised drawings and the half sizes.
I'll take a half. They're easier to deal with.
What's that?
It's not like the half size, they're easier to deal with.
Should I entertain a motion to deny the plan before we go any further?
Yes,
You want a big one?
I think he said something under his breath.
Okay.
Want a small one, Charlie?
No, I love big stuff.
whenever you're ready.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering, here on behalf of Gateway Motors of Wareham LLC. And
I'm John Mellor, I'm one of the applicants.
At the last meeting, we had a pretty good discussion on the project, and I think that it boiled down to pretty much providing a little bit more in the form of landscaping to the site. We created a landscaping plan. I know that there was some discussion as to whether it was required, at least from my end, whether it was required or not, and it was, I think when John and I sat down and discussed it, we felt that we would prepare a landscaping plan and provide it to the planning board for your use and hopefully approval. I know that Emmanuel's asked that it be prepared by a registered landscape architect per the landscaping regulations. When we reviewed the regulation, it didn't come to our attention that a landscape architect was required to prepare the plan, because it didn't involve any real building alteration, and I think that the way the code, the ordinance is written, that we had to increase the square footage of the building by 10% or 1,000 square feet, something along those lines. I have a pretty substantial library of plans that were prepared by landscape architects, so we took the liberty of editing just taking some of the landscaping plans that we had and pick out what we thought would be appropriate in this case for this site. And we did prepare that landscaping plan and added another sheet to the drawing set. And what we essentially did was created a little bit larger landscape area than I think was discussed at the previous meeting, but we thought that it would be appropriate to kind of flank where we would like the driveway to be by two landscape islands. So I brought this by Ken's office on, I think it was Wednesday of last week. We had a brief discussion about it. We changed the tree type that was selected to something that was a little more appropriate. At Ken's suggestion, we added that. We also put some hydrangeas across the front of the building where the customer and employee parking was going to be. And what we also did is there was some discussion on parking, and where the building is 2,400 square feet, and we're required to have a parking space per 300 square feet. We just added additional parking to create a total number of 8 spaces on the site. We pushed down the display area parking a little bit and created 8 parking spaces across the front of the building, or the side of the building, let's call it. We also changed the location of the handicap accessible walkway to the building. We pushed that closer to the building and left a little bit of an area where we could at least drive 2 smaller cars and put them as display vehicles by backing them across the sidewalk in a small area of brown pea stone that one could drive on, as opposed to driving on the landscape bed. So that's what we added. Those are the primary changes to the plan. So I don't know, I think the landscaping kind of speaks for itself in this case. It's reasonably significant, we think. We did not, we do want to really keep the 2 buildings separate the way they are right now. They're on 2 separate lots as it is, 1034 and 1035. And all of our work is focused on 1034. So there was discussion about placing or enclosing that curb cut on the front. That's one thing that we think that is something that we're not really willing to entertain at this point in time. And we think that we're really working within the framework of the zoning bylaws and working on the site that we're dealing with here. And we feel that what we're showing is more in line with what the board was looking for last time.
Is that a set delineation there? Are you proposing a curb there? Or?
No, the dotted line?
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to designate on the plan that there was a 24-foot driveway width from the end of the parking spaces, and by placing those planters that we showed there, that might help define that better, and it would prevent people from, I think there was some discussion that they might shortcut from the end of Chapel Street across the face of that yellow building and drive into the site in that manner. So we put 4, like they're essentially 2 by 4 foot self-watering planters, and self-watering means, they just water the plant themselves. We have to add the water, of course, but that's what we did to try to define the access to a specific.
Self comes from you do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, John might do that, or whoever is going to be working down there. But That's why we did it. We could actually paint the stripe on the road if somebody, if that's desired by the planning board. I think a condition such as that is in keeping with the way site plan review could be handled.
I want to make sure I understand, we're narrowing this entranceway here? This appears to be an extension of your landscaping work here, you're extending out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Narrowing that entrance
Yep.
from, by like, close to 40%?
Well, whatever it is, I think that our
guessing.
original plan, nothing's really changed from the driveway location from the original plan, but we are adding some curbing in that location.
I didn't pick that up last time, so this is great. I just wanted to make sure I was reading this right is all. Thank you.
And then we cross-hatched off an area in front of the steps that go into the side of the building. And now by adding the 8 parking spaces, it would allow them to use the whole 2,400 square feet. We had a brief discussion on 1,200 square feet versus 2,400. What are you going to do with the rest of the building? And where it fell within a reasonable number of parking spaces, we chose to show 8 and use the entire building.
Why isn't the driveway symmetrical?
What's that?
Why isn't it symmetrical? You got
What isn't symmetrical?
the entrance. Looks like you got 2 different radiuses there.
I believe there are 2 different radiuses there. One's a 25 and the other one's really not defined.
Is the lighting here?
There's 3 light poles on the north property line adjacent to the display area. We show 3 bases with light poles. And
Anything going to be on the front, towards the
What's
front? Any lighting towards the front of the building, where the 2 cars are on the front?
the only lighting would be on the front of the building.
Going to have a wall pack on the side?
Yes.
I noticed they tagged it again already, so.
Yeah, it's, once again, it's one of those, you know, if you go down there and look, all the sides of these buildings, back here is tagged, over here is tagged, back here is tagged, you know, so it's, you know, once again, it just goes to, kind of supports the rationale that we think there is a need for security down there to prevent people from doing that, and also to make it viewable by the Wareham Police Department, whoever else is walking around down there, and not create a hiding place for kids.
I think they sleep down there.
Well,
Surprised they haven't caught them.
they might, you know, I think it's all gonna change when the site is taken over and developed in the manner that's desired.
Who sleeps down there? The police department?
Is there a street light on that corner?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there is. Well, not on the corner.
Corner of the property.
It's further down by the hairdresser.
Oh, that's way down the other
Yeah.
side, okay. I wouldn't even mind seeing a wall pack or something on that wall towards the pharmacy, you know. If it's lit, they're not gonna loiter or hang around, you know, you don't wanna make a little, I see there's a couple of trees on your landscaping plan in there.
Well, we tried to just screen the side of the building with some viburnum to take away the opportunity for people to get in there and do things. I think there's, you know, that parking lot's kind of lit up. The CVS parking has a couple of lights. There is a light pole right at the end of this landscaping area here. There's a light pole here. So with the streetscape, there are also additional light poles and bases that are going to be added along that frontage.
I think the landscaping looks a great improvement, Bill, I think it looks good.
So there's no maintenance to this operation, no garage?
On plan right now.
Where do you go for your inspections?
Well, we haven't really entered into that agreement yet, but what we've decided not to do is provide any maintenance on site, no detailing, no washing, no maintenance. So all the vehicles will be maintained and serviced off-site before they're delivered to the site for sale.
And just for the record, Emmanuel, who couldn't be with us tonight, did present us with his rendition of a landscape plan. I don't know if he gave you a copy, but it also suggests closing off that other curb cut.
Well, what he suggests there was actually planters across the frontage, planting areas with space in between. One of the options is these portable self-watering resin planter boxes, putting a couple of them in front of the rest of the frontage to, and whacking down the weeds as well would probably help a lot.
Well, I think they're gonna eliminate most of that weed patch with the,
That
With the
weed
island.
patch, this little weed patch right here?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's gonna be, all it takes is we're gonna saw cut, remove the asphalt, create a meaningful planting bed there instead of trying just to, you know, squeeze something in a place that really might not be the most suitable. So we think that if we're focusing really on that building and on that site, all this work is taking place on 1034. 1035 is the other lot. We think that it's it's reasonable given what the project is. I mean, the project is over here and concerns that building and not what could occur on the other building. And you know, there's some benefits in leaving things the way they are on the existing building that we're not working on right now. And you know, some of those involve pre-existing non-conforming nature of a setback for a property line that exists there. You know, and I don't think that Charlie could probably jump, I don't mind if I don't put you on the spot, but I mean, I don't think that merger provision applies in the same manner to two sites with existing structures on them as vacant land. I mean, if it was vacant land and one was non-conforming, you know, then that merger, I think, is appropriate. But where we have two structures on two distinct and separate lots, I'm not so certain. I don't know on that one.
Not sure that I know either.
Yeah. But we think overall it's a good improvement.
I think it's a great improvement considering what the prior tenant did. You know, he just ignored it and let the weeds grow and everything else.
I want to say, it's clear that you heard clearly last meeting, and I appreciate very much what you've come back with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything, Charlie?
Just a question. Sheet 1, where the two cars are parked in the front, it says to see note 6. And when I look at note 6, it says remove and dispose of existing brick patio and timber edging, provide landscaping, see sheet 3. But in nowhere on the plans do I see what you're putting underneath where those two cars are proposed. Now, I'm wondering how you're going to put two cars in there. Those spaces are pretty tight.
Yeah, we acknowledge that they're pretty tight and they're really going to be, you won't be putting an SUV up there or a full-size pickup truck for display. You know, it's probably more in the line of a Mini Cooper or some small vehicle. That
I would think that, you know, I'm just speaking for myself, but personally, I would rather have one vehicle in there and a little bit of protection between it and the sidewalk to prevent some hoodlum from running his keys along the front of that vehicle. But, you know, I'm not the owner, so I don't have to worry about it. But the plan does suggest that there is something to be put in there. It's landscaped on one side, but nothing shown where the cars are, so I don't know what's going to go in there.
What it was is there's some timber railroad ties just off that grassed edge that we just didn't want it, we didn't think that we wanted to back up over those, so that's what's being removed is the railroad ties.
So the brickwork that's there is going to remain?
It has to remain, I think. Yeah, did you say to take it out?
Yeah. That's note number 6 in the upper left corner of the plan. And it's pointed to both sites. If you look down on the plan view where the two little vehicles are. It says existing brick patio and then C note 6.
Yeah, well, with note 6 on the right-hand side, that is true, that will be removed for the placement of the landscape in there,
Well, you might want to remove the arrow then that points to where the cars are,
to the left side.
as it suggests that it's going to be removed from everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good catch, Charlie.
This plan, Bill, you? Or who checked it?
What's that, me?
Who checked this plan?
That would have been me.
Well, since you're in that area, it references 6 parking spots. You might want to change that note to 8. 'Cause there's 8, right? One,
There's
two,
8.
3, plus-
He's got the other 2 labeled. Oh, you're counting the ones in the front for
Talking
8?
about just a narrative there with the arrow pointing. It says proposed customer parking for 6 vehicles. 8
Yeah.
vehicles. But what is the purpose of the overhead door?
That was, that was existing there. That was a shipping door when it was used as a fish market, and that door is probably 3 feet above grade, so there's no opportunity to be able to drive into the building from grade.
But you're going to leave it in place.
Yes.
Leave it in place. And I don't know enough about car lots. It just seems very odd to me that the car dealership is not responsible for any type of inspection of the vehicles before they can pull off the lot. You're not required to look at brakes.
Well, I think that that's all done prior to delivering the vehicle for sale to the car lot. That's what the thought is that all the maintenance to have a perfectly operating, running vehicle will be delivered to the site.
So it's the condition of your license that there is no detailing, no maintenance on this property whatsoever.
That's correct.
That's a condition of the license.
That's how we presented it.
Very good. Yes, looks like a nice project. Just, can I see the back of that?
Anything further? I would. Mike Baptiste has made a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mike King. Discussion?
Oh, is it? You can see her
All in
plate?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You guys want?
Yeah. I,
All right. Do you have anything written up by any chance?
No, I don't.
Have a template?
See if it has a template here.
We'll be surprised, okay.
Here's the, review approval notice. Here's the conditions.
clear cut. So,
Standard conditions include the definition of the plan set.
yeah, I'm just, is that the actual address, 349 Main Street, or that's,
Well, I think that was, what, it's 379.
379?
The correct address is 377-381.
That's specific,
But the town of Wareham has delineated both parcels as 379.
Other standard conditions include inspections, right to appeal within 20 days of filing of the decision. And a filing on the land records of the decision and the plan.
So that's what we're using.
motion?
Motion to endorse,
No, motion to approve with standard conditions.
approve, said conditions. Wow. Gateway Motors of Wareham LLC.
Second come in tonight?
Yeah.
Second.
Motion was made by Mike Baptiste, seconded by Mike King. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. What's that mean?
Well, you can scratch that too. Todd's here,
He can participate in site plan.
That's right, okay. Yeah, manual's missing.
Should I scratch out clerk too, I guess?
Of course, you got it. Mike King is the clerk. He's been wielding his authority as the clerk of the,
That's right. Gotta watch out.
Let's go through this last thing. Sorry, we go through this last one.
Very good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hey, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad we got rid of that other landlord, or tenant.
What's that?
Thank God we got rid of the other guy who was on their property. Maybe something would happen here now.
See, you should have let him take your boat for a ride.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Night, Mike.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Covenant release for Jordan, Jonathan, and Skipper, that nothing's progressed on that?
nothing's progressed on that.
All right, and we need a continued discussion on town meeting articles. Do we have an actual deadline on those articles yet? They said it up to date yet?
You were voting on this one. I didn't vote. You can vote, yes.
Yeah, you can participate in site plan.
Site plan review.
Okay.
Settings, your official act.
You can't.
Hey,
I don't have an official schedule for town meeting, but I think we should try to be making a decision on what goes forward by the end of next month.
you got two on here in the bottom, towards the bottom, Ken. Prohibit moratorium on social consumption and allow social consumption.
Right, I figured put up the option. It was recommended to me by one of the Board of Selectmen that we don't bother because the state has closed down any opportunity for social consumption uses at this point, and so they developed their regulations.
How long is that gonna be, do you know?
Oh, no.
So if we did nothing, say they come up with something in 3 months, you know, the state's kind of slippery sometimes with things like that, then we're gonna be caught with our pants down, right?
I would say proceed with a moratorium until such time.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna.
That way, if the day after the warrant closes, they come out with regulations, we're covered. We walk out and leave it.
It's Alan's book.
That would've been my recommendation, that's why I was heading anyway.
So what we can do is we'll advertise for a moratorium on social consumption. If it's what the board wants. We could also add this into the other marijuana changes as well, too. Yeah, we have to advertise, we have to hold a public hearing as a planning board on all zoning articles that are put forward. So we advertise and, for a date that everybody can come in and have their say.
Is a moratorium on the use a planning board article? Or is
If it
that-
goes into zoning, yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, actually, you're talking about sponsorship or review?
Both. Should it come from us or should it come from the licensing authority?
Which licensing authority?
Well, the local. I would say we'd stick with it, but don't wanna, somebody throwing a flag later.
Had we, new topic on that? Michael, did we talk about one medical marijuana license as a cap last meeting?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It says 3?
Yeah, I seen that in there, we didn't get to that yet.
I'm sorry.
We didn't get to that point yet.
Oh,
We're gotta progress slowly here, but we wanna,
sorry, my bad.
So the correction on the medical marijuana treatment would be scratching the institutional district and adding special permit in districts where other marijuana establishments are allowed. That seems to cover it, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is the 393, the number of marijuana, medical marijuana treatment centers shall be limited to,
One.
and you want to limit that at 1.
Ken, you said that the Cannabis Control Commission has shelved the social consumption plans for now?
No, they haven't, they're in process. They haven't, they won't issue any licenses for social consumption at this time until they've gone through it appears at this point that they're going to do a pilot program. They're going to try it out in certain towns, maybe,
I read that.
and develop regulations that go along with that as a result. So what we'll see is probably, I would say, at least a year down the road, if not more, we'll finally see regulations on social consumption from the state.
Have you got any indication that we're being considered for a pilot program?
No,
That pilot program is still being talked about, it's not in place.
no, it's not started yet. It's still being discussed as to whether or not to go through it.
And section 394, minimum separation of 1,500 feet required between marijuana retailers, adding no separation required for marijuana treatment centers, which kind of neatens up the paperwork so they can be in the same building.
Exactly.
399, state program development for cannabis business is ongoing. A 1-year moratorium on the issuance of any permits for social consumption. Stop at 1 year?
Well, there's a question as to whether or not the Attorney General would allow something more than 1 year. You can try 2 years, and if we're off, I don't think there's too much of a loss. We can maybe get the Attorney General to just approve a 1-year moratorium, if that's the case.
Could that happen? Could we approve, could the town approve 2, they come back and change it to 1? Or would they just disqualify the whole thing?
Depends on the Attorney General at the time.
But they could disqualify the whole thing.
It could.
They could just go 1 and be safe.
a little bit's better than none. What did the old saying, Charlie, a bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush?
Yeah.
Right?
You could do one, and then at the next town meeting, if you still haven't made up their mind, extend it again.
You do it again, exactly right.
The village districts.
Well, just on 390, so I'll advertise for the changes to 391, 93, 94, and 99.
99, the new section?
Yeah, 99 is new. Now, in the village districts, the suggestion was that we look at what's been done in Onset Village and repeat that same density allowance in the Wareham Village District 1 and 2. the expectation is we'll get mixed use, but there has to be enough density of residential to make it work for the redevelopment that we're looking to accomplish.
Is that density small enough for going down the road with, in the villages? What I see you're doing is you're just saying, we're gonna make them the same and use the existing onset village.
Correct.
Right? Are those small enough, or, I mean, does that allow the density that we think we need?
Well, one of the things that I'm working with Emmanuel right now is doing the concept plan for downtown, to see what our yield plan would look like when we get some square footages and get some more realistic numbers. I think what we do is go back and revisit
Again?
these numbers again.
Okay, that's fine. It certainly makes sense to have them the same villages.
Well, we want two distinct villages, but in terms of the density, what we want is the market to be appropriate for improving the properties.
Well, I mean, parking plays a lot in it. And the definitions written down there, is that something,
That was something that the zoning board of appeals had asked about with the one or two of the applications that they had before them recently. And motor vehicle service does not mention towing or car wash. And they had asked if that definition shouldn't include it, because the expectation was that it would be allowed. I think it's appropriate to have a discussion about it, and see what we really mean by motor vehicle service, and if it's an appropriate enough definition as is, or if it should be modified in some way to represent the kind of businesses that we like to see in town.
at one particular time, you couldn't have a sales license for motor vehicles, whether it's dealer license, unless you had a structure on site to service them. Is that no longer the case?
I would say over the last couple of years at least that on the used car license or the Class 2s, we've been basically allowing businesses to have an operation where it's a sales operation where the service is off-site, but it has to be guaranteed, to us that they have a contract with somebody to do that. It's like an inspection sticker. Everybody thinks the used car or new car dealer has to have an inspection, station. They don't. There's many times you buy a new car from somebody, you got to go bring it to somewhere else to get it inspected. But as far as the used car sales and stuff, Class 2s, we don't really require it to be on-site. It can be off-site, again, because depending on the location, et cetera. But they have to definitely provide they have a contract which guarantees they have service available for the warranties, et cetera. And I think actually next door, the other property, which Mr. Fitzgerald has, going to have that classic car, used car place there. I believe that's the same deal also, if I remember right.
I think in regards to this towing and car wash, though, these are two separate animals. If I had my way, I wouldn't approve any towing in this town because these just become endless amounts of accumulation. They never seem to be in control. They never seem to be concealed out of public view. Right, so it requires a special definition for a towing operation. And the car wash is the same, that you need, this is beyond us, because now we're talking about the treatment of the water and the processing that goes along with this. This is not necessarily hand washing out of a bucket with a rag here. So, you really understand the plot of land, the circulation, the high volume of cars coming in and out. And I think that these two things have to be treated separately outside of the definition of
Car service.
regular car service.
Yeah.
I can see that happen. I can see that happening. We have so many used car lots now in town. You know, I can apply for a Class 2 license. I got a big parcel of land. I got a couple of tow trucks. Next thing you know, I got 25 vehicles out back in storage, tow storage.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly speaking, would we have approved a car wash on the Cranberry Highway today?
Yeah, we
No,
do.
no, if you look at the car wash, it's out there by Charlie's place on the Cranberry Highway, the amount of cars that come in and out of it crossing 4 lanes.
I don't think it's been an issue.
Those cars
They
come
won't
in
be
and out
able to
across
cross,
4 lanes.
they won't be able to cross 4 lanes for much longer.
No, I know that, but if that was to come in front of us today, would we have allowed that?
Sure. We like people crossing 3 or 4 lanes, 5 lanes in town.
If they have a
That's
clean car.
standard.
If they have a clean car, we allow them.
You have to remember that on that highway, it's a double yellow line, which means anybody taking a turn across it can be stopped by the police and written up. So you're dealing with people who know they're breaking the law, period.
I would like to read the definition of motor vehicle service. It's under 340.6 on page 17 of the latest version of the zoning bylaw. It says establishments engaged in providing structural or mechanical motor vehicle, parentheses, including automobile or boat, parentheses, repair, washing, or service. So washing apparently is in there. Car wash maybe is a different function, or are we
I think it
saying?
opens it up to, if you put car wash now, maybe it's opening it up to mechanical car wash. Something of a little bit more aggressive nature.
Right,
But towing is not in there.
towing is not.
No.
I think I'd have to agree with Mark. I don't know if I'd add towing. Bless you.
Does it take a town meeting vote to update these definitions?
Yes, it does.
That could slip under the radar and come back and haunt us, big time.
Ken, do you list the towing where it's an enclosed yard or an open yard? Because there's a difference in fees and stuff that way, as far as charging and storage.
Charge the towing for the service versus,
When you tow, if you have an enclosed area behind a fence where you leave the vehicles, there's a different charge as far as storage versus open.
Yeah, secured.
It's secured and unsecured also. That should be in the rules. As far as washing goes, I can tell you that this past week, I think on Saturday, we were going down Onset Ave, and there's a repair shop, and they also have a used car lot there, and they were washing a car up front running into the street, which is not legal.
environmental issues and drainage being one of the problems. Do we stop washing, do we separate washing from motor vehicle service and consider
Well,
it a special use?
Technically, they're supposed to keep that within the bounds of their property and not go out into the stormwater drains, et cetera. It's no different than a boat yard. You can't bottom wash a boat anymore at a boat yard unless it's fully encapsulated, so the stuff gets into a system in control. If that goes into the water, it's a huge fine from the state and the federal government.
But regardless of the environmental regulations that would apply anywhere, do we say that washing is a separate controlled use, or?
You know, they have to clean their cars. They get dirty if they're on the outside. All I'm saying is that if you have something like that, I believe the inspectional services, in that particular department, that's the requirement, that they go through to look at as well. You know, they have an oil trap system as far as any oil, if they do oil changes on the facility, et cetera. And a lot of them, if they have overhead doors, I think the plumbing requirements requires a drain on the floor, which means it has to hook up to a septic system or to a sewer.
Or the water separator.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that involve all this.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Mike. We just need to split the definition. Of course, a car lot is gonna have to do some hand washing. Snow, salt, rain, yeah, they're gonna have to maintain that, but to start a detailing business or a mechanical car wash of any sort, I believe needs to sit in its own definition. And the towing,
The only thing about that, you know, when you think of the village, yeah, you wouldn't want it, a car wash or detailing right at the curb. But there are sites, inconspicuous sites, where you would never even know that operation was going on. And when you do an outright ban like that, you cripple some of these sites. Like, I can think of, one site recently on Cranberry Highway where it was interpreted as manufacturing.
car wash?
No, this was a different use, and the use was interpreted as manufacturing, and the guy moved out of town. Now, this was very inconspicuous, nobody would know he was back there assembling furniture. It was a perfect site for such, you know, but he didn't want to go through the special permit process and lose time and money in the process. Same thing with detailing. I think there's a detailer that just moved it. Other than the signage, I don't even think you'd know he was there.
Or how do you address mobile detailing? That's a big thing now, convenience. Come right to you. Had your card done right there at the fire station.
You know, putting in a full-blown automated car wash, given our water and sewer rates, I don't think it's practical. Who knows?
I'm struggling a little bit as to why this is an issue that needs to be,
Right. Me too. Why do they need to be added?
yeah, I mean,
I would just leave a sleeping dog lot.
yeah.
So the issue is that it's come up before the Board of Appeals
Once, twice?
once.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Why,
what,
why change the majority for one instance?
I'm in agreement with, if we take the philosophy to tune it every time we come across a situation we don't understand.
Well, towing is not defined anywhere or mentioned anywhere in the zoning bylaw. So what happens is the building inspector, the building commissioner, has to make a determination about how that use fits in. Either it doesn't fit in at all, in which case it's a use variance if there's a proposed towing facility, or it's considered ancillary to some motor vehicle service, and so fits under that definition of motor vehicle service.
Well, I think there's a lot of vehicle service centers out there that repair cars on a daily basis that don't operate a towing service. They contract with the towing company to handle their customers' needs. I mean, that's been going on that way for years. I don't understand why the repair service and the towing have to be married. And then you just end up with, I can think of one place right off the top of my head I drive by every day. You couldn't buy a square inch in that parking lot. They're operating a towing service and a repair service. And I don't know what their car limit is, but I guarantee they're over it. And that's the risk you run. You know, Mark mentioned it, you know, once you add towing, the volume of vehicles on that lot is gonna triple overnight.
So I'm getting the sense that you don't want to touch this at this point. Unless you see some other justification for going through the
Right now,
review.
you're telling us
Can
that
you give us an example of what was requested?
compromising it?
Well, it's under review, under hearing, continued public hearing at this point, but it's motor vehicle service facility that provides towing service as well.
See, the problem, well, first of all, I have an issue that we don't have any guideline, and it's at the will of the building inspector to decide whether towing operation can move in. There's no way to calculate how many vehicles are gonna be there, and if the facility is going to be accommodating to those number of vehicles. I mean, do you say, I'm only towing 5 vehicles at a time, and that's all I can store on my lot? Then your business shuts down until you free up a spot? Or do you just keep collecting these things like every operation in town has done? You know, where you end up with 5 cars, becomes 10 cars, becomes 15 cars, and none of it's concealed, and the property's probably not designed for that to accommodate it. And the longer those cars sit there, the bigger environmental concern it becomes. You know, even this lot we just approved, one of the questions I asked here was, there's the tracks right at the base of the slope, but then there's water right there. So if he was to run a car washing operation there right now, that's why I emphasize there's going to be no maintenance there whatsoever. But it's unreasonable to think those cars aren't gonna get washed on that property.
No. I don't know that washing cars pose any environmental hazard.
Yeah, it does.
I don't, if you start pressure washing an old vehicle, George, you're washing grease and oils off to that road into our storm drain system.
That's more than what I consider washing a car, you know.
Well, but that's not, we have this open definition of a car wash. If you gunk an engine and you start rinsing it off with a garden hose, I'm just cleaning the engine.
Like you go down the car wash.
That's banned in most car washes.
But it's not from a car dealership on Main Street, and I don't even know where these storm drains and outfalls are on that back thoroughway there. Are they still discharging out to the bay?
They discharge to behind, into the.
Go into the-
river, I think.
We're diving into a very deep hole.
Right. So,
Into
until
the
we get a
river.
sheen out there, that's my concern with where these things get placed. In a towing operation, you have to say, you know, why is the car being towed? Why do cars get towed? They're broken down somewhere, you got a busted up transmission? They tow it and drop it on a piece of property that we haven't approved, or they start accumulating more than we've approved, and now we've introduced an environmental concern.
You just approved a car dealership with 50 lot storage back in the back for disassembled vehicles, so. And what I meant to say is, I don't think a car wash is any worse than a heavy rain as far as washing contaminants.
That's if you're washing it in your driveway, though. If you're washing it to recondition it. Now, all that being said, 2 doors over from there, who even knows what's going on in the back there? I just want us to have some type of control and framework that we can operate within. And right now, towing's not addressed anywhere in our bylaws.
No.
So I can put any commercially zoned, industrial zoned area, I could put a towing operation into. If this lot we just approved, if Mike Fitzgerald's lot wanted to put a tow operation there, we could allow that? We cannot do it?
Years ago, and probably up until 5 years ago, most towing businesses were involved with body shops. If you go to a lot of places in the Boston area, that's how they all worked. The towings are given licenses by the Board of Selectmen with the provision from the Chief of Police of how many he wants to have. We have 3 licenses, that's it, there are no more. Actually, one was just turned in recently, which was Depot, and we're not replacing it. So basically, before it even comes to you, they have to get a license from the Board of Selectmen. The answer right now is no.
Or they would purchase an existing.
Yes, but again, if they purchase an existing one, you can't just purchase an existing one. You still have to get licensed by the Board of Selectmen. You can't just sit there and sell it on the towing license.
But they, in theory, they could have an agreement between parties that one person frees their existing license up to allow somebody else to go before the selectmen.
The selectmen decide who gets it. That, they can't sell it. They could give it to anybody they want. Again,
Non-transferable.
it's not transferable. So that's it.
Well,
Ellen, is
if
there any-
that's the case, then why is this even relevant then?
Right now, it is irrelevant because you can't get one.
Right.
Go ahead, Charlie, I'm sorry.
Is there any distinction made between a towing service, such as when you'll have this outfit that'll go out and pick up a car off the side of a road and transport it someplace and dump it, and then he's gone? Is there any distinction between that type of a towing service and a service station that might have one of these little three-quarter-ton pickup wreckers in their yard, that they, as an incidental part of their ordinary work, they'd go out and pick up the car and bring it back and do the service on it? Is there any difference between that and the licensing?
There probably was at one time, but again, you have to be licensed, as a tow company for the town.
So if the towing was incidental, and you'd have to identify what you mean by incidental,
Yeah.
but if it was incidental to the repair facility, that would make it different than a towing service by a substantial margin, I would think.
You have specialized towing companies which are not, basically contracted by the town when there's an accident, et cetera, the pickup. And those are individual companies, but that's a whole separate entity.
There's a little confusion between somebody that wants to be the duty hook and...
Oh, I'm not talking about the duty hook.
The town and get a town license.
No, I'm not talking about the duty
The
hook.
guy that wants to, gets, customer calls and say, my car's broke down, and he
Yeah.
goes and gets it and brings it.
Yeah,
Yeah, normally what happens is, there's, like on the Cape, there's 2 or 3 towing services. There's a couple in the area, and they will tow custom cars, et cetera, pick them up, move them, whatever. That's a whole different animal.
Can we back up a minute? The definition, the proposal was to add towing and car wash to motor vehicle service in the definition. And this was to solve the problem that towing and car wash are very loosely defined or not defined at all in our definitions. And we want to ensure that any type of business having to do with automobiles is included in automobile service, right? Correct. So why would it make more sense to update the definition with a very broad statement like that? Any commercial operation having to do with automobiles is considered automobile service? And try to cover any and all situations, so we're not one at a time in ourselves all the time.
That's an option, and then what you're using is the special permit provision that says that you can review the specifics about the project and make a determination as to whether or not it's appropriate because of its impact on the neighborhood or its the size or the whatever it might be a consideration as the special permit process.
It's very odd. Special permits are required for commercial strip and commercial,
Motor vehicle service and commercial strip and general commercial.
but in WV1 and OV1, they're just yeses.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Like we want them to be in the village, according to the way our use chart is laid out. So but anyway, back to the definition. Just make the definition, have wording in there that tries to cover anything and anything to do with commercial automobile.
So do you want to explore this more, or do you,
Or we take Mike and my original approach and leave it alone. Let the building inspector deal with it.
Where there's no more towing licenses available in town anyway, why even touch it? If you add it, does it open the door to existing repair shops branching out into that work? Or attempting to branch out into that work? I mean, it's only my own opinion, but the three the three tow companies that I see in town currently are disgusting eyesores, located in exactly the wrong place. Welcome to Wareham. Here's a pile of cars. The last thing I would want to do would be to encourage more of that.
Would you like us to do with this?
What would we do for a marijuana van repair station?
I get the point.
If I can, I'd make a suggestion that maybe several of the members sit and go to look at a couple of cities and a couple of towns and see what they actually have written down in their bylaws and in their zoning bylaws in particular, and see how they break it out. When we did the sign bylaw back in 2010, whatever it was, that's exactly how we did it. We went ahead and, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we went and take a look at what several different communities did. We ran across Falmouth, who had just spent $50,000 for an outside firm to write their sign bylaw, which was similar to what Wareham would have needed. So it made it a lot easier for us to use that as a base. I think the questions you're answering are hard to answer unless you see what other people have done and how it's worked for them. Just an idea that I have.
Yeah, doing some homework would make sense, and taking a couple of things to public hearing, and actually, so you can vote on them and appropriate make a recommendation to include it on the town meeting warrant.
Are we supposed to do something with this wetland protective bylaw?
No, that was, this was a memo I wrote to town administrator. And so I included changes to the wetlands bylaw as well, which,
The biggest question that jumps out with me is, what is a resource area?
they're
It
defined.
seems now they consider anything in the flood zone as a resource area.
Well, the flood zone, floodplain is the resource area.
So that means at least a third of the town is a no activity zone.
Is that the way it's defined in the state act now? A flood zone was always separate, that it wasn't, I'm trying to remember, my memory perhaps doesn't go back far enough, but I always thought that it was,
They're listed separate.
it was understood to be an area that was subject to the wetlands bylaw, but it was not a resource area, as defined by the wetlands statute.
That's not how it's being interpreted.
By whom?
Local conservation.
Oh. I would suggest looking at the state statute to say how it's defined. I was always under the assumption that, yes, a flood zone was something that was managed under the rules and regulations, but it was not a resource area per se. In other words, it wasn't an area that was protected by the statute, such as an inland wetland or a coastal wetland or a coastal bank, a sand dune. I'm trying to think of some of the others. White pine, not a white pine, cedar swamp, something of that nature. But that a flood zone did require you to manage it so that whatever work you did within the flood zone did not adversely affect your neighbor by causing flooding to go in his direction. That always has been to me something that was more important for inland waterways and not a coastal waterway, but I don't know that the state made a distinction between that. because, putting a little bit of fill in a coastal flood zone is like putting a sand pebble in a bathtub and expecting to be able to measure the rise of the water in the bathtub. It's insignificant, you can't see it. But I know it's regulated. I don't recall that it's a resource, but that's something you should be able to find out by looking at the state statute.
Is this whole section new?
No, only the underlying parts are new. This is the a portion of the bylaw, an excerpt from the bylaw, and the underlying portions are the new additions.
So the boardwalk provision and taking no activity zone requirements out of the villages is all there is?
Oh, so all this is listed, right?
Yeah, all this is existing.
Just the underline is the change?
Just the underline.
Yeah, we're already screwed on the no activity zone stuff.
Yeah. Well, it just seems they waste a lot of energy on it. You know,
So they're removing the no activity requirements totally from the villages, right?
That's the proposal, yeah.
you've got a rail that runs through there. How much activity do you want? You got trains full of trash go through there every day.
I have to go study the definitions. I don't know what any of this means. Okay,
I understand what you're doing there now that you mentioned the underlines. And that's a good thing.
All right.
Anything else you need on this, Ken?
Well, the first one, Article 1042, which is the table that has dimensions for setbacks, which are different if it's a commercial next to an industrial versus an industrial next to a commercial, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but could be dissuaded. But I was thinking that we even up the dimensions, setbacks from between the commercial and industrial uses. One of the things we have is we're using up our commercial and industrial land. Not a whole lot more of it left, really. So being more efficient about the use of the land, and if you have a commercial property next to an industrial property, you should be able to have smaller setbacks than if you were next to a residential.
are you suggesting the planning board go forward with this one?
Yes. If you wish, we, again, would publish public hearing notice, and you could take this to general discussion.
Well, at a minimum, we have to fix this because it's inconsistent. It doesn't make sense. You could read the chart two different ways.
Well, the other inequality here is, if you have a commercial use next to residential, you could have air guns or compressors running, and it's a 20-foot buffer. But if you want to put a dentist office there, it's a 40-foot buffer. That makes no sense. Office use 40-foot buffers, but commercial use is 20.
If I can put commercial next to a single-family house, a two-family house, or a multi-family house 20 feet away, but an office has to be 40 feet away.
This is the landscape buffer.
Right.
Yeah.
in industrial 50 feet away. And your point is that seems to be backwards?
Well, the commercial use and office use, the office use doesn't make any sense, because I don't know of many noisy
I'm
office,
agreeing with you if I
You
understand
know.
it right, yeah.
you know? And are you gonna take that as, well, if you've got a commercial use, it's one thing, but if it's got an office in it, it's another.
So what we do is suggest changing a 40 to 20 feet
On the office.
for office.
Leave industrial at 50, right? Leave commercial at 20, change the 3 offices to 20. Oh, look at that. They are if you read it the other way.
Yeah.
See that?
Uh-huh. That's what's confusing about this.
So we're gonna change the 40s here to 20. And you're proposing we change the commercial, office, industrial, all the buffers to 10.
That's right.
Makes sense to me.
Got 1 vote. 2 votes?
Yeah. Yeah, the chart just has to be cross-checked.
I make a motion that we ask Ken to draft an article to reflect the changes we just discussed on 1042.
Does that change the setbacks?
No, this is only for a landscape buffer. Setbacks remain the same.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
Want to say it again for the folks at home?
Pardon, say again?
Want to say it again for the folks
I
at
make a motion that we modify this chart on changing the 40s for office next to single-family, two-family, and multifamily from 40 to 20 on minimum landscape buffer, and we change the commercial, office, and industrial buffers to 10 for all 3 uses, as is outlined in the document that we're looking at now.
Motion was made by Richard. Is there a second?
Hold on one second. Let me just, if you follow column A under office, and you follow it over to office, it's 10.
One from column A.
If you follow it to commercial, it's 10. What did you just say to change office to? 10 all the way across or 20?
Yeah, those 10s right there, as he's indicated, but change this, this, and this to match this, this, and this.
But if I come down here from office to commercial, it's 10. If I come over here,
Wait a minute.
office to commercial, it's 10.
Oh, here, it's,
Those other columns that you're changing are commercial and office from a residential setting. Not from each other.
here's the problem. If you look at a single-family home in a commercial, it's 20, right? Here you go, a commercial, this is 20. If you go to a single-family home to an office, it's 20, but here if you go office to a single-family, it's 40. These are just errors. These 40s should match these 20s, and they don't. This is just an error. If you look at the table one way versus the other way, you get different answers.
If you go to office, it's 10. Office to commercial is 10.
That's right. What it does is it changes the landscape buffer for industrial between the industrial between commercial uses and office use, and changes the office setback to residential to 20 feet. Not setback, I'm sorry, landscape buffer to 20 feet.
Okay. Is that a second?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Mark. Discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? And we already did the non-conforming structure language, allowing the building official or his designee to make these determinations.
Right.
So you've got 3 articles now for the planning board to present to the selectmen? 2 marijuana ones and landscape buffer modification?
Yes. I think that's an important distinction, that it goes to the Board of Selectmen. They're the ones that are the decision makers about what goes on the town meeting warrant.
But then the village district is another one, right?
The Village District is another one.
So that's 4.
The village district.
Where we make the village districts the same dimensional
Oh, yes, yes.
between onset and downtown.
So the fall town meeting warrant has to be completed and submitted by October 7th.
And
It's done.
before that, there's a decision in September about closing the warrant.
That is the close,
That is the close?
yes.
That's not the deadline.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's gotta be at least 30 days prior to town meeting is the close, but prior to that, there's submission deadlines.
So then our public hearing's gotta be 2 weeks before that?
You can hold your public hearing. We've done it up until the night of town meeting. You can't alter anything.
Keep in mind, yeah, you can't alter anything. The warrant has to, the new rules that just went into effect, that there's no more change in anything after, 21 days before town meeting. It's locked, loaded, done, no changes.
Yeah, once the warrant's printed, once the warrant's closed, there should be no changes, should be printed. If you wanna change something, you make an amendment on the floor.
But that applies to the special town meeting as well. to both.
Special town meeting has a different deadline, but it's the same thing. Once you've hit that deadline, that's it.
21 days before town
You
meeting,
don't make alterations the night of town meeting.
which we've done, right?
We,
I included myself in that. My point is that
we've had to represent such changes,
I
but
know you
we
have.
didn't make them.
I understand that. But 21 days before, both of them are locked with the new timeline that was just passed.
And we're going to have to follow through with that. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody from town meeting may get up on the floor and ask for
Amendments.
amendments.
Of course.
That's still right for the town meeting members to do.
A minor amendment.
Well, they can change anything, can't they?
Well, you can make,
They can change the color green to blue if they want.
well, no, you get a gray area of due notice, but, I mean, you can make correct Scribner's errors, things like that, but
I thought what Claire said is you can be less stringent, but not more.
But there's some areas it's really subjective on what is less and what is more.
So our public hearing, then, do we need to decide on that tonight?
When it's a dollar issue, it's very clear what's more or less, but when you start talking,
I think we should have public hearings in August.
Way ahead of the game.
Well, let's hope so, because they could be continued for further discussion as we go along. But start them at least to see if we can finish up what we can in August, so that we can prepare for September and be ready well ahead of the.
if you're far enough ahead, and you find substantial changes, you can schedule another public hearing, but
So what do we go for, the second meeting in August?
You have the 12th and the 26th of August are the two Mondays.
Can we do all of them in the same night?
usually.
Do it on the 12th. Why wait?
Oh, it just means you've got to be, well, you've got them pretty much written. They'd have to be advertised. And
Yeah.
is that reasonable to, or is it 26th?
The one,
Need 14 days prior? Is that?
14 days prior
To,
to the public hearing. So if we were to, we need to advertise this week and we can't. So it's going to have to be the 26th.
okay. Need to do a motion on that, George?
Sure. A motion to set the public hearing date for town meeting articles? Is that what you said?
I make a motion that we set a public hearing date of August 26th for the 4 articles that the planning board is going to sponsor.
A motion was made by Richard. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mike King. Discussion? And the motion is to set a public hearing date of August 26th
26th.
for the town meeting articles. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything further?
I have some tablets in the office for people that are interested in using them for, instead of having all the paper, having this to read on. If you're interested, let me know. I'll prepare them load them up with the files for for each meeting,
Go paperless?
if we can.
So you're going to pass these out at the meeting, then we'll give them back to you at the end of the meeting?
Right, so I can reload them as.
You gonna load the bylaws on there too?
Yeah, we load the
Can we get them to
bylaws and
load the
subdivision
drawings?
rules and regs.
Can you preload the drawings?
Yeah, whatever we have in digital form, reload
Do you
them
want
up.
to look at the drawings on a screen that size?
Well, we
Yeah, but
can
you can
expand
zoom
them.
them up.
Yeah, but then you only see a piece of them.
That's true. I'm totally on board with that.
I don't know why we don't have a 70-inch television there so that we can do this thing right. I mean, it costs a whopping $700 now, so.
Bob has one over there, but we don't get to see what he's watching.
All right.
No,
I have one comment. I still need to get on the agenda at some point for the economic development strategy presentation. I think it'd be wise to hold off on that until after we get through the town meeting stuff. It's a little quieter. But I will bring in copies. I've had copies printed up of the whole thing, just so I can share with you now. But I'm not, I still want to do that, but it's not time sensitive at all.
good. motion?
Adjourn?
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Mike Baptiste. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 9:17.
Almost a world record.